Welcome everyone, as we are starting our studies today. All of those who are already with us, all of those who may join us, please be very welcome to say hello, to be present in this study that we do all together. Hello Cynthia, Coutinho, Cynthia Pilau. We all study together. And we start with a message from the book Christian Agenda by the Spirit André Luiz, entitled With Jesus. Renunciation will be a privilege for you. Suffering will glorify your life. Tests will expand your powers. Work will be as a mark of confidence along your pathway. Sacrifice will sublimate your impulses. Bodily illness will be a beneficial remedy for your soul. Slander will honor your task. Persecution will be a motive for you to bless many. Anguish will purify your hopes. Evil will summon your spirit to the practice of goodness. Hate will challenge your heart to manifestation of love. The earth, with all its contrasts and uneasy renewals, represents a blessed school of individual perfection, in whose purifying lessons you will leave selfishness crushed forever. So, as we mentioned, we start our study today. Welcome everyone as we carry on study, as always, in an interactive way. Now interacting through our YouTube page. Everyone is welcome. May you all say hello. May we all embrace this task together and carry on learning as we go through the earthly experiences according to the Creator's, God's, who is love's will. And His will is of love towards every and each creature on earth. And in that way, understanding through John that God is love, and it is, we start our reflections today within Spiritism, inspiring lives, reflecting about the motives for resignation. I guess that is a great lesson for all of us in the current situation as learners. Our reflections will always be based on us as immortal beings and moving and learning, interacting within the universal laws and see what we can learn today. Resignations or motives of resignations is based on the chapter in the Gospel according to Spiritism. We start reading, then please also interact, bring your viewpoints, bring your questions if there are there, so we all go along together. We start by saying, with the words, blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be consoled. Jesus indicates the compensation which awaits those who suffer and the resignation which leads men to bless suffering as a prelude of the cure. So when we read, when we heard, what is coming to us as learners when we became aware of this message based in the gospel, motives for resignations? Do we think that this title is quite convenient for us currently? Gabrielle is saying suffering softens the spirit. Correct? Excellent. Suffering, what do we understand about suffering? Let's expand that a bit. Would we be right in saying that suffering or sufferings are experiences that we as spirits, as immortal beings, as children of God, created with love, may have asked to go through in order to expand our consciousness, in order to learn, or we may have been presented with this proposal of inner renewal. So suffering from us, from the spiritual perspective, is very different from a materialistic perspective. Suffering for us is merely an invitation from God, who is our creator, for us to become more aware of ourselves and also ask ourselves what the suffering, which is an experience, is inviting us to learn about ourselves. The spirit, we know that we are all immortal beings. We are not body beings. We are immortal beings. So in that way, we understand this viewpoint from that perspective. Then we have Cynthia Palou saying it is very convenient because we may have a tendency of feeling victims of faith. Resignation comes from understanding that the challenges that come to us are opportunities for improvements. Correct. And we are all here on earth, better say, on the school earth, in order for us to learn, for us to increase our spiritual faith. Danuz is saying hello, let's move forward all together. And yes, I think all of us currently here on this loving planet are invited to expand more our ability or our superior faculty of resignation. Understanding resignation is a virtue which helps us to calm down, which helps us to center, which helps us to understand there is a power greater than us called God, who created us all, who loves us all, who still is supporting us all as we go and as we are going through this experience on earth. Gabrielle says, school earth, yes, is nothing like punishment, has nothing to do with imposition from God. No, no, no. As more as we understand the love from God, we will understand He will never make us suffer. He is always inviting us for us to, let's say, expand our awareness or understandings about the natural laws. Cynthia still is saying, understanding resignation allow us to focus in what is important, correct? And what is important, Cynthia? What is important for us as immortal spirits, as immortal beings who are on earth currently? What is really important for us? Do we know, or anybody else who is joining us, what is important? What is relevant for us currently? What comes to our mind? Think about and come back as I read what Cynthia Coutinho is saying. The cure of the soul. Usually the most difficult experience are the ones where the growth is greater. Is correct? For us, Cynthia is saying, focus in our inner self-improvement, for example. Yes, what is important currently as we are on the journey on our evolution on earth? Would I be right in saying what is important now is to really bring the focus within ourselves, developing self-awareness. Danuz is saying having the awareness of our immortality, correct? That is important. Having the awareness that we are all created by God and still are all loved, even in this situation where we are undergoing now. And another aspect that we can say that is important for us here is to perceive ourselves as learners of ourselves and see what we can learn through this experience. Rafaela is saying hello, hello, welcome. Faith and joy, correct? It's time for us to be tested in our faith, or it's time for us to develop the rational faith, understanding that we are not alone, we are not lost on earth, we are guided by the superior power which governs the universe, which is the love from God. Gabrielle is saying, develop, reinforce faith, hope, and optimism. Correctly, how can we be optimistic, and also joyful in these days that we are living on earth? How can we be optimistic and also, Fabio, be welcome here. Hello, be welcome, participate please in our discussion. How can we be joyful in these days as we are undergoing these lessons as immortal beings? Does anyone have an idea how we can be joyful and optimistic? The reason for us to be together here reflecting about resignation, about the Spiritism which inspires our lives, would there be a reason for us to enjoy our experiences, our existence in this moment where we are now all together? Yes. Focus on what we can do instead of what is limited. Yes. It's really a test for us to learn to let go our selfish way of controlling experiences or life and bringing the focus back to our essence, which is divine and sacred, and learn to develop the real control, which is within, meaning learning to control what we think, learning to control our emotions, learning to control our choices, and choosing to make wise choices according to the universal laws of the moment. And in that way, we can go through the experiences quite optimistic, quite joyful. Also optimistic because we believe more and more that we are all loved and supported by God, not alone as we may perhaps wrongly think. Gabrielle is saying, see the positive side of the situation, take lessons. Yes, the positive side is for us to join our inner power in order to help us to heal ourselves as we go through these days, which are transitory. When I say to heal ourselves within, what would we looking for in order to heal? Does anyone has an idea? What, of course, we are all different, that in that way we have different aspects that we need to heal within. What could we be healing? Cynthia is saying, use the time we have wisely, not just let it pass by. Make a plan, learn something, help someone. Very good, this reference, very good indeed. It's almost like learning to use the time wisely, be productive, be active in doing good for ourselves and from others through our thinking, through our feeling, through our action. Choose to free ourselves from laziness, from empty spaces that we don't know what to do because we still are quite vulnerable with our shadows, that sometimes we can easily slide back to the laziness, to allow the time to go by without, let's say, writing good words, actions in our diary of our existences. Thais say hello. Hello, Thais. Welcome. Carry on enjoying us. We are all learning here about motives for resignation. Working for the good, great good. Yes, this is a very, very important thing that we can use our time, invest in our time to work for the good of all. Because we are here as a universal family, connected globally with all of us. And there are different ways. We have infinite varieties how we can help. Everyone will choose in which way we can be more useful in life. And in that way, promoting also ourselves in these, let's say, superior powers that we carry within. And these powers being activated, stimulated by us wisely, those are resources already that will help us to heal. So in that way, we carry on for the next one, which says, those words can be understood in this manner, that one should be content to suffer, seeing that the pain of this world is the payment for past debts which have been incurred. Patiently supported here on earth, these pains will save centuries of future suffering. One should be happy that God is reducing the depth by permitting payment now, thereby guaranteeing a tranquil future. So when we read it now, when we heard it now, what is this part, this passage under the title Motives for Resignations based on the Gospel according to Spiritism teaching us as immortal beings as we all are? What comes to our minds? Do we still, after we read that, do we still believe that God is love? Do we still believe that God loves us? And what do we understand when we read here for payment for past debts? What comes to our minds when we read that? How do we, as learners of Spiritism, understand that? And how can we read it in a way that it brings consolation to us? Please feel free to write down your contributions through what comes to us. How is that coming to me? To be content to suffer. Who has an idea? Oh, hello, Gloria Aguiar. Yes, God is love all the time. Welcome. That's right. Leandro says hello. Welcome, Leandro. Let's join together, reflecting about motives for resignation. Gabriel is saying nothing is by chance. We shouldn't feel like victims, as mentioned before by the team here. Yes, Thais, absolutely. God is love and love all of us. These are trials that we have asked to go through. And why did we ask to go through these trials, Thais? Let's imagine those who are studying with us who may never heard about this. Why did we ask to go through hardships? Why did we ask to go through suffering experiences on earth? Why? What are the reasons? What do you think? What are the reasons? What comes to us? We ask to go through as lessons to learn what? What did we ask to learn in going through suffering? Let's imagine the situation where we are facing now on earth. And there is a lot of suffering going on, which is true. So what is the reason behind that? Thais says, unfortunately, we still learn through suffering. Yes, and why are we still learning through suffering? Would I be right in saying that it is because we haven't really learned to love? Oh, Thais is complimenting now. One day we will learn through love. Can we already choose the possibility on earth right now to train ourselves in that way? At least advance a bit more? What would we need to look and address within in order for us to learn true love right now in the present? Does anyone have an idea? What do we need to look within, to address within, so that we may position ourselves? Susanna said the law of reincarnation. Cynthia Palu is saying, while we don't recognize our responsibility on what comes to us from previous actions in these previous lives, we will be able to really learn the lessons. Many conditions and diseases are our spiritual core, correct? That is a very, very important aspect. Cynthia Coutinho, it is like a process education, like we said. We acknowledge our mistakes and make amends for it. That's the importance of difficult experiences. Danusa, we need to re-evaluate what really are sufferings. Most of the time, what is seen as suffering is just an expression of rebelliousness. That is what I was just looking. What do we need to address within if we are really focused on suffering? Because under God's eyes, suffering actually is a lesson to learn to love. So we need to address that and see our level of rebelliousness, or level of selfishness, or level of pride, or level of indifference that we still may bring within, because experiences are not as we would like them to have. And yet, when we look on our shadows, we also can learn which kind of positive elements, which kind of potentials we can develop now that we are in the experience right now. First one, I would say, is what is written here, resignation. If we are freely choosing to resign ourselves towards the will of the Creator, then also the experiences will be easier, because the resistances from the ego level onwards makes it more difficult to let go through the flow and heal ourselves through the process. Rebecca is desperately to say hi. Oh, hi, Rebecca. Welcome, darling. Love you, and I miss you. Be with us, join us here, okay? So we're here now. So suffering and expression of rebelliousness, correct? So for us, as the Spiritism teaches us, suffering is nothing more than an invitation from God, who is love, for us to learn to love ourselves more. And as I mentioned, one of the aspects, the higher potentials that we need to develop is resignation, is obedience, is renouncing our personal interests, renouncing our egoistic, selfish thinking, belief systems, renewing them. Then we also flexibilize ourselves better, and we already are cooperating to heal ourselves mentally, to heal ourselves emotionally, and also to heal ourselves on the physical level onwards. Are we okay here? So this is one of the most motives here, because we all come from previous experiences. We are all under the law of reincarnation. We all had already many different existences, and we bring elements from our previous wrongdoings through our ignorance, whatever the reason was. Now here in the present, we ask and we are invited now in the present of every moment in our existence to go through. What does it mean? Payment debts means simply change our internal mentality or internal world. For instance, learning to forgive each other, learning to be tolerant, learning to be patient, learning to be honest, learning to be sincere. Those are remedies to heal our souls. Daniela is saying, what about if I'm suffering to see so many people suffering? What do we do? Because when we develop compassion, we will really feel for all of those who are suffering in the world. But we will do that from the essence level onwards, understanding that no one is abundant on earth. And we all, ourselves and everyone on earth, is under the law of reincarnation and is also adjusting their consciousness according to God's will. Nothing happens for anyone by chance. Everything is under God's guidance. And always remember, for us within Spiritism, God is love. We may not understand currently, especially when we come from a very materialistic viewpoint. After we free ourselves from the physical body, or as more as we evolve, we will understand it. So what can we do? Let's focus back and rescue us from us and bring us in a more healthy state of mind within the law of love that reigns within earth, and then vibrate, irradiate through prayer, through meditation, experiences of love, of peace, vibrating, irradiating goodness towards all of those souls, all of those spirits, all of our brothers and sisters who may be going through harsh experiences that we are currently going through. But nothing happens by chance. And what also brings peace to our hearts is the understanding of the immortality of the soul. No one dies. No, we know that currently those who are dying, because that is God's will, that is part of their process of reincarnation. Those who don't is also under God's wills. They still stay on learning on earth, while others are leaving earth but carry on alive and carry on assisted and carry on learning. That is a way that we look, that we potentialize ourselves within in terms of goodness, in terms of peace, in terms of light, because we do know there is a lot of pain going on earth now. This is why we are gathering, that this is why we are helping also to reflect about the lessons that Jesus brought already, that we are reflecting about the love of God, and that we are not alone. That it's very important that we help ourselves to keep ourselves more or less balanced and healthy in our thinking. Is that okay? Yeah. And here when it says on the end, God is reducing the depth by permitting payment, because as more as we go through and learn, all the experiences on earth are transitory. And then when we learn, we are stronger for the next learning as we carry on doing so. We need to remember that, yes, especially remember that God is supervising everyone and everything on earth. We are not abandoned. And above all, as we started our meeting today, God is love. It may not be a level of love that we can understand, but He is. Because the purpose of suffering is helping us to promote ourselves in a more happier, fulfilling state of mind. And in that way, we move on to the next one now, which says, continue reflecting about the motives for resignation. The man who suffers is like a debtor who owns a large sum and to whom the creditor says, "If you pay me even 100th part of your debt today, I will exonerate you and you will be free. But if you do not, then I shall torment you till you pay the very last installment." Would not be the debtor feel happy in supporting all kinds of hardship in order to liberate himself, so paying only 100th part of what he owned? Instead of complaining to the creditor, wouldn't he not be grateful? What is coming to us in this passage? The benefactors have been watching us without the same sufferings, which we allow ourselves to succumb to. They maintain optimism. That's a very, very positive point that Danusa brought here. Because while we are going through the earth and there is a lot of suffering, we are not saying there is not. But it's also full of the spiritual benefactors, servants of Christ who are helping humanity to go through this step forward as we are going. The choice for us to focus on the suffering or on the light, on the good beings who are helping to shift us all forward, that is an internal option. Is asked for all of us to try to elevate ourselves spiritually through prayer, through reflections as we're doing here, to suit us spiritually from a higher superior level, understanding the natural laws, and in that way connecting with those benefactors and also do our part, because they also need us to cooperate, that we all can do that. And encourage us to proceed with faith that everything on earth is temporary and is supervised by the law of God. And Gabriel says we must start to improve ourselves now, learn to be more fraternal in our thinking, overcome our pessimism if we are dealing with that, re-educating ourselves according to the natural laws, making efforts, exercising the goodness within ourselves, exercising the rational faith. That is not something that comes magically to us. We need to put the effort into developing new self-belief systems now that we have more time to train over and over again, reinforce prayer, which also allows us to connect with our spiritual benefactors and stimulate our higher self. Leandro is saying, once we understand the journey that the spirit embarks at the passing death of the body, becomes easier to understand and accept the death and the situation like the one we see ourselves going through. Well done. That is correct. For us within Spiritism, there is no thing such death as an end. We see the process as a process of disincarnation, where sooner or later, all of us, in one way or another, will free ourselves from the physical body, but we'll keep on alive. We survive the physicality and we keep on learning in the universe. So for all of those who may be studying with us now, as spirits as well, understanding that no one dies. And that is also important for us to reflect where we are in the current situation, because we all have dear ones who are in Brazil, which is our case, or elsewhere. How do we feel? Have we already developed a level of trust that we can trust God and everything what happens is okay? Or are we feeling anguish in relation of not having control of the situation? Sandra Coelho, good afternoon to all, welcome, let's cooperate, be welcome with all of us here. And Thais says, all of the opportunities that we are giving for our growth, but many times we rest with selfishness and being rebellious. So if that is the case right now, we can choose now to suit ourselves more. Because identifying selfishness, identifying rebelliousness is necessary as long as we don't carry on reinforcing it. When I say it's necessary to identify in order for us to change, for us to choose freely then to overcome that. It is time for all of us currently to develop more the higher potentials, which is resignation, as we are reflecting here today, obedience to God, never forgetting when we say obedience to God, the God that we present is a Father of love who loves everyone, everywhere, all the time. Fundamental to understand that. So do we see anything else here what we read? It's really be grateful for the opportunities that God granted us to be incarnated again for us while in the flesh, to go through experiences that are necessary for us to advance, for us to progress, for us to evolve. We will never progress or evolve with the same behaviors, with the same thinking. So if we are very, very anguished or very negative, that is a signal that we are invited to renew ourselves within the natural laws. Because as more as we embrace them consciously in our minds and in our hearts, we will feel calmer, because we can separate what is down to us to do currently and what is not down to us to do. Then it becomes easier. And yet in that healthy state of mind, we can even cooperate much more towards the good of all in the globe on earth. Gabrielle is saying via Facebook, Maria João Marto, hi everyone, first time on the English mode. I'm feeling happy to share this moment with you and miss you all already. Seifro, hello. Please, if it's possible, come back, join us on the YouTube, then you can also interact directly here. Facebook, Luzia Guimarães, I love it so much. Luzia, if it's possible, come and join us through the YouTube, so you can also express yourself and can also cooperate with your thinking, and as we are all learning here together. So in that way, can we move forward? I think so. So the next one, carry on, reflecting about motives for resignation. This is the meaning of the words, blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be consoled. They are happy because they are paying their debt, and also because after payment, they will be free. However, if on freeing himself on one side, man becomes indebted on the other, he will never find liberation. So what are we learning through these reflections based on the gospel according to Spiritism under the item motives for resignation? What is coming to us when we read that now? Do we have an idea? What is coming to us here now? Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be consoled. That is very welcomed in the current days, isn't it? Bargaining with Jesus won't work, yes? So what does Jesus actually mean when he says, blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be consoled? So for us, for all of those who are studying with us here, what is the understanding under Spiritism about these words? Are everyone who are suffering blessed? Are all who are suffering consoled? Those are relevant questions, aren't they? And what do we think? Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be consoled. What is Jesus meaning? Because he is giving these informations to us for centuries. And then Cynthia Palui said we should improve ourselves in all moral aspects, not only in specific ones. Yes, and which moral aspects would that be, Cynthia? What comes to your mind in that way? Because really the main point that we are in this epoch on earth and undergoing this intensive calling from God to awake and to progress, it is to progress on the moral elements, the moral values. Gabriel says, those who repent will be consoled. Those who are humble, that is a good point. I think the first thing that we are here learning in terms of being consoled by Jesus, who is the governor on earth, spiritually speaking. So when we learn to be humble, we are also learning to diminish the pain and sufferings in our existences. It doesn't mean that we will not have hardships to undergo. It doesn't mean that all the experiences will be easy for us. No. As more as we learn to be humble, that means that we are soothing ourselves from within. and there is less resistance on the ego level onwards, because there's more openness and receptiveness from our essence level onwards, or as the spirits as we are. We don't want to fight anymore with the natural and universal guidance. We want to really choose now to resign ourselves and to learn from, as immortal beings as we are. That is fundamental in our reflections. No one dies. We are all alive, and we will carry on alive. Even if we go through this virus that we are facing now on earth, if we will free ourselves from the physical body, but no one dies. Graziana says, the good way of suffering is when we do not complain, do not feel rebellious, or not being indifferent. Very well said. If we don't complain, instead of reinforce our possibility of expressing goodness in any way that is possible. And also what Graziani says here, and not be indifferent, that is very, very important, because the indifference is based on selfishness, and indifference and selfishness will increase the sufferings, because there are resistances that we still may bring. Here I repeat again, let's we all learn that we are on earth, which is undergoing a promotion, spiritually speaking. Those who are in their destiny to disincarnate and carry on alive in the spiritual realm, that is part of the journey, and it's okay. Those of us who are here to carry on, we carry on learning here. Leandro says, the Bible also says, know the truth, and the truth will be set you free. We now know more of the truth thanks to our benefactors and the spirits that continue to working us, helping us to understand. Yes, what is the truth? What Jesus said many years ago. And then Dai says, otherwise it will be adding to our depths. As many times we may add to it with desperation, with complaints, rudeness, and anger. Yes, that's right. Then Daniela says there are different ways of paying. We can pay by improving morality every day. Yes, getting better and better day by day, moment by moment, always giving us new opportunities to renew ourselves. There is no space for us to blame or feel guilty. There is only a constant, unique invitation, renewal, renewal, and renewal. Danusa says, Evanisia, on developing humility and humbleness, sometimes we think we are being good, but if we feel pain, in this direct sign of pride, empathy, care, support goes hand in hand with rational faith. Yes, that is a very good point. If we say that we are humble, but we are constantly in pain, that means that we are not what we think we are. As Jung said, who you think you are is this little bit, but who we are, the unconscious memory, is much bigger. When we really learn to be humble, the pain will diminish to the degree that increases humbleness, especially when we engage with honesty with that. And if there is pain, is still when we go through, when we are more humble, we are not complaining about. We understand that is a mechanism of self-healing. The intentions will differ. One is negative, when we think we are humble, when in reality we are full of pride and selfishness. But when we are already training humbleness, which is an exercise that we are doing sincerely, then our intentions will lighten our heart. Leandro says, the truth about the continuity of life, death is not the end, and we are all walking towards one goal, evolution. Precisely, that's very well said. The main point to be on earth is our evolution, is our progress. And we all will free sooner or later from the physical body in one way or another. I repeat again, as we are going through on earth, the experience that we are, that so many spirits are freeing from earth, are returning to the spiritual world. There is no reason for despair, because that is part of the natural law. The only thing that they are more in a collective number than individually. And I say again, as I said previously, everything is supervised by the love of God. Let's trust the greater power in life and move forward and learn from the experiences. And then we move to the next one, is still reflecting about motives for resignation. Therefore, each new fault only increases the depth, there being no one whatsoever which does not entail a compelling and inevitable punishment. If not today, then tomorrow. If not in this life, then in another. Amongst the list of failings, it behoves man to put the lack of submission to God's will in first place. Thais is saying it is also important to be vigilant, present at all time. When the trials come, if we are not vigilant, it's very easy to fall into ingratitude and desperation. Yes, because it's much easier for us still to be driven by our unconscious systems than by our conscious systems. But when we talk about the center, the objective of our existence being evolution, that means that we need to learn to drive, to guide our lives more on a conscious level. And Sandra says, we are all living a cycle here, and the only truth we know is the death of the material body. What we do between this and to try follow Jesus Christ's path as the spirits we are. That's correct. That's very correct. It's very important when we are reflecting about motives of resignation to really make it very clear for all of us, all of those in the spirit who may be studying with us, all of those who perhaps choose free themselves from the physical body and still are here learning also with us. God is love. We are not a physical body. We are spiritual beings. We are immortal beings. Sooner or later, all of us will free. So it's nothing to consider is only for us who now are undergoing the virus situation and may disincarnate through this process. It still is under God's laws, and we all are immortal beings. We all carry on being assisted by the enlightened spirits. We still all carry on being loved by God, being loved by Jesus, who really intensively in these moments are assisting humanity everywhere on earth. Anything else that we get from here? We know that we will, through the law of evolution, with new choices, using our free will wisely, developing our higher potentials, we are all redoing our own past history. But hopefully, we are choosing now to do that in a loving way. As I mentioned previously, there's no reason to punish ourselves. There is no reason to feel guilty. There is only one reason: to use the time that God is granted to us to invest in promoting us as spirit is immortal beings. Graziana is saying, I understand about the depth that what matters is my intention. If I am trying to adjust myself into God's laws precisely, even when we do what is wrong, but we become conscious and then we change our intentions as learners, that is still is valid, that is still, because we all are not yet in a stage of evolution that constantly we make and hold ourselves in a more healthier way, as the superior spirits do, and as the superior spirits are doing while they are helping us in the middle of all the pain on earth. They do not contaminate themselves with that. They feel compassion towards our experiences, which is different. Okay. Can we move on to the next one? Off we go. So if we complain about our afflictions, if we do not accept them with resignation, or if we accuse God of being unjust, we contract new debts, which in turn makes us lose the fruits which should have been gathered from these sufferings. This is why we must begin again from the start, exactly as if after paying part of the debt to the creditor who has been tormenting us, we then took out another loan. Is that not beautiful, the way that the gospel according to Spiritism is explaining to us? But how do we understand this passage? If we were to present it within our own words, which words would that be? Because sometimes our own words can help others also to understand it from a different perspective. So if we complain about our afflictions, we do not accept them with resignation. That is important reference that the gospel presents to all of us, for us to see where we are right now in terms of God's will. Because we know that God is always, always merciful. God is always, always love. And God is always, always just with everyone, everywhere, all the time. Is that making sense to you? Or what else is coming for you here in this passage? What else are we getting from here? Let's put out our own ideas, our own understandings. So would we be wiser if we choose since the beginning the right road, the right option, the right choice, so that we don't need to keep on repeating and repeating and repeating? Although the repetition also leads us to the evolution, but we can take, let's say, a more easier route to follow. Cynthia is saying positive attitude when facing our trials, reflecting in the best ways to find a solution to our problems and the skills we need to acquire through the experience. Correct? Positive attitudes. Grazi is saying accusing God is not taking responsibility for my choices. Very well said. So again, if I'm accusing God for what is going on, for what I'm undergoing, which probably I asked to go through as a learner, so I'm not taking responsibility. Not taking responsibility would mean I'm not taking the opportunity to exercise my free will according to God's will. You see how beautiful this is always organized. God always loves us, yes? That's right. Love, correct? God always loves us. So responsibility is the internal autonomy where we as immortal beings, spirits, are training, exercising the free will, which is a gift given by God, now no longer because we have to, but because we choose freely and spontaneously, understanding better the natural laws and or participation within them. And then Sandra is saying, at this moment, vibrating in positive levels, things will be more easier to keep going, do not exist problems without solutions. If not a solution, there is no problem. There are always, always solutions, especially for those experiences that God presents to us. We may not like them, but he didn't ask if we like, because he knows that we are children. We are creatures. He is the creator. He knows that his methodology based on love will favor our own evolution, will favor our own healing in a short, medium, and in a more advanced time in our existences. Thais is saying we will have to go through over and over again until we learn and change attitude. Yeah, we can make a huge difference in our existences currently if we choose not to go against God's will, if we choose to surround ourselves, if we choose to put ourselves in the chair of a learner, and if we choose then actively and constantly to renew ourselves sincerely, not only on the appearances, but honestly. And in that way, we can jump quite a lot in the couple of years or days that still are left for all existence on Earth, because the natural laws, they are everywhere in all the universe, and wherever we are always being invited to adjust ourselves accordingly. And Daniela is saying, when I recover my consciousness after death of the body, I will feel the need to return and repair the fading experiences. Well said. So here perhaps through rebelliousness, moral indifference, moral laziness, or ignorance, pride and selfishness, we may ignore the experiences because we are covered in the physical body. But as soon as we return to the spiritual reality and we awake and perceive what we didn't do and understand that we cannot advance unless we do undergo these experiences as learnings, we ask, sometimes we implore to come back again so that we can go through the experiences and overcome what we need to overcome, expand our consciousness and move on to promote ourselves more. Sandra is also saying that also remind me that the parable of the talents, what we do with what we have. Precisely. We all have talents that we bring with us. All of us are different because we are unique beings. We are unique and valuable human beings. All of us, wherever we are. So we may ask ourselves in our reflections, which kind of talents do I have currently that can I use to promote myself and to promote the good for all? Let's reflect. If you may share here some talents, which kind of talents can we have already? Of course, it's still to be developed, but which kind of talents do we, as children of God, loving beings as we are, already have that we can invest in our own evolution, promoting us spiritually according to the ethical laws in the universe? Which kind of talents? What comes to your minds? Which kind of talents? Think about. What are we good that we already can share for the good of all? Danusa said, the studies invites me to renew every situation from a different perspective so that our vision can be amplified, hence less in a turmoil. Yes, constantly if a turmoil emerges, which is a conflict that we bring within ourselves, then it's time in the present to renew it, to upgrade, to actualize, always according to the ethical, natural laws in the universe. Then we are getting things right, easily. Fraternity and solidarity, for sure in the state where we are now on earth, the great, great, great values. To develop our ability to see ourselves as a unique family on earth and develop the universal fraternal virtues. Solidarity is not helping only me and mine, but helping the human family in a solidarious way. Perhaps it could be through my time, it could be through resources that I may have, it can be through prayer, because again, we can pray collectively, individually, we can think in a constructive, positive way according to God's laws, which is summarized in love towards everyone and everywhere where our brothers and sisters in humanity are currently. We can also think in a more constructive way. We can think in a more hopeful way as we are undergoing these experiences, not seeing the experiences as tragedy, but only promotion for the souls who are learning on earth, and learn saying kindness towards others. Yes, learn to be more softer with ourselves. We still do mistakes, we still are imperfect, but let's choose in a loving way, gradually, to embrace ourselves in a more loving way. Is still doing mistakes, but be willing to do less, to correct ourselves more. And we can be kind in our thinking, we can be kind in our feeling, we can be kind in our way of communicating with others currently, because we are in the isolation process, more on a virtual level, but that is not a problem when we are talking about the spiritual reality. From the spiritual perspective, there is no distance. We can always be kind mentally and psychologically, emotionally. Serenity, calmness, Cynthia said, yes, learn to be calm, understanding that everything is for the good and improving everyone and everything everywhere. Danusa says humor and joyfulness. Yes, we can learn also. We don't need to be dark and heavy looking down. That is not the reference when we refer about the love that comes from God. The love that comes from God, it lightens our hearts. We feel more enlightened. Meek and peaceful loving, yes, very sad. Graziani, Carol Vieira, being more positive, precisely. That also requires efforts, that we elaborate our state of minds according to the real values in life. If we bring back what goes on earth and reflecting about resignation and using that as a methodology to develop a more positive, constructive reference in our minds, nothing happens by chance. But everything that is happening is not a punishment. It is the love from God which is helping us to heal ourselves and to heal the planet. Thais is saying patience and kindness, yes, because in this more intensive way that we are now, let's say, referring in the family through the isolation process, sometimes our old habits still may emerge. Let's always start each day conscious that I choose to promote myself with more humbleness, more patient, learn to be more kinder, learn to be more tolerant, and I will train myself. Perhaps learn also to silence more, choosing what I'm listening, what I'm bringing into my being. We can select that. Let's nourish ourselves spiritually with what is spiritual in essence. That for itself will help us to feel more calm and more centered. Thais is saying patient kindness. Danusa is saying challenges are an opportunity to intensify our creative capacity, correct? The challenges is almost like they are divine invitations or mechanisms that helps us to get out of our comfort zone. Because the comfort zone sometimes is very, very uncomfortable. Then we are revising that those limitations that we create. And then Graziana is saying Jesus' teachings, obedience and resignation are two active virtues, not erroneously confused with negation of sentiment. Correctly? Resignation and obedience, they are great, great virtues, the opposite of pride and selfishness, and they are very active within the conscious. So it's not something that you just sit there and God takes charge of everything. No, we need to cooperate. We need to stimulate the sacred, the divine within us. We need to participate in that. And in that way, we are potentializing ourselves. Sandra is saying everything is God's mercy, correct? Even the experiences that we are undergoing, even the moment where we are here also together. You see, it's impossible to be physically together, but it's possible to be virtually because all of us are willing. We are embraced the spiritual with this proposal that God offers to us. Thais is saying respect in a sense that not everyone has the same understanding as I have. Some will have more, some will have less. We are here to help each other, correct? So if I in one area may know more, then I have the duty to help others in that area. But sure that I have plenty of other areas which I know less than other people know. So in that way, we are learning through humbling ourselves that we learn and grow and evolve individually through the collective. Danusa says, yes, being able to decodify that we understand is real charity. Yes, what is real charity? It's a very global aspect. So again, when we are referring here to learn to resignate ourselves, for sure we are going through the reference of charity as Jesus taught us. And we find that answer in the Spirit's book, which is to learn, to practice, to exercise, to learn to practice beneficence, to learn to forgive, learn to be more charitable in that way, to see that we all are beings of goodness, but we all are still imperfect and perfecting ourselves. Those the shortcomings of others, may we address our own and be willing to enlighten our own, and in that way our hearts will be much more soothed, and in that way we are cooperating actively in our own healing process. Graziana says indulgence. That's right. I was looking for that word. Thank you for helping me there. Indulgence, to be more indulgent towards everyone as well. That will make a huge difference. Especially these days, we still don't know where people will be, where we will be in a couple of days. Indulgence, benevolence, and forgiveness is the practice of real love as we are training ourselves. Carrying on then, on entering into the spiritual world, man is like the labor who arrives on the day of payment. To some, God will say, here is your recompense for the days you have worked, while to others, the so-called lucky ones on earth who have lived in idleness, or those who have built their happiness on the satisfaction of their own selfishness and on worldly pleasures, he will say, there is nothing more to come. You have already received your salary on earth. Go and begin your tasks again. Reaching others where they are and not expect others to see things from where we are. Correct? That's correct, Anusa? And what is coming to our minds now with this passage from the Gospel according to Spiritism regarding motives for resignation as we are developing our thinking here, as we are developing our reasoning? What is that referring to us here? What comes to us here? Any idea? On entering into the spiritual world, what comes to our minds? That is very consoling for us as we perceive ourselves as immortal entities. Entering the spiritual world means when it's our time that comes to the end here on earth, that we return to the spiritual world again. So for us who are putting effort, for us who are choosing to restructure our existences, to promote ourselves according to the real values in the universe, even in the current situation, that will be, let's say, soothing for us when we wake up in the spiritual world. And sometimes we don't need to wait to wake up in the spiritual world. We, as more as we become aware of ourselves and learn to listen to ourselves, when we are choosing the right options according to the ethical values in the universe, we already have the feedback within us in this existence as well. And Thais says, until we become less material, until we learn that pleasures on earth are temporary and that the real happiness cannot be found here, we will have to complete our tasks over and over again. That is a very important point. Then we may ask ourselves, where is my focus? And all of you and all me as well, we need to be honest with us. I am focused more on the material level or on the spiritual reality. Do I already see myself as a mortal being who is back on a physical level in order to dematerialize myself, in choosing to spiritualize myself? Do I already, in my reflections, know that my stay on earth this time is already a signal that I have not advanced much previously, but I choose to come back in order to promote myself? And promoting myself, I repeat again, to dematerialize myself in choosing to spiritualize myself. And the process starts all in our minds and in our hearts and will be externalized through our way of being. Our major focus on earth, my friends, is not to focus on other people's mistakes, other people's shadows. It is to bring the focus back within. Because the enlightened benefactors are constantly teaching us. For us, the one of us would choose to focus on our renewal process, we won't have time to focus on other people's shadows and limitations. And then Sandra says, it's related to a material life. We can serve God or Mammon. That is a very good point, which is one of the chapters in the Gospel, isn't it? Then again, we may ask, and everyone can only answer to themselves. What predominates in us? And doesn't matter, let's say, even if it's Mammon, up to here, let's embrace the proposal and move from now onwards, that we can also do that. It is a constant exercise, Ivanese. It's so easy to go back to my old self. Yes, Thais, this is why the benefactors are constantly referring to all of us, the importance for all of us in a constant mechanism to carry on studying, because the studies helps us to refresh our memories, what we already studied in the spiritual world, to remind ourselves what we came to conquer for our own evolution here on earth. And there's the group studies as we have here. It aims to refresh, to help us to sustain, because as more as we emphasize that, we are, let's say, at least in an easy position to choose for the new way of being. And then Leandro says, to be reincarnated is a blessing and an opportunity given to us by God and better ourselves, and to follow what we established as a plan when back on the spiritual realm. Yes, and we can be pretty sure, although it's different for all of us because we are all unique, what we came back to do on earth is to learn to love, is to learn to forgive, is to learn to tolerate, is to learn to be fraternal between our family setting, with our family members, with the society, in our workplace. We are always with the right people for the right learnings that we ask to get. So we need to be vigilant, as Thais said previously, when those moments emerge, that we don't submerge ourselves in the old way of being, but that we sustain ourselves with the new reference and exercise and train ourselves. We came back to succeed. Danusa says something that I know. Thais says, it definitely helps. I'm very grateful. Yes, it does. As more as we familiarize ourselves on a daily basis as a free choice, as a spontaneous choice, to be willing to study, to go over and over again, because we will not understand everything in once, like what we are reflecting here, motives for resignation. Each time that we go back to the same subject, reflect again, as we are evolving, we will get new insights, which will help us even further in our promotion process. And he says, yes, and especially times like now, makes us reflect a lot, and as Gabrielle said, changing now. Yes, we are, as we already mentioned in previous studies here in this week, that our opportunity to promote ourselves is right now. We are under an intensive and extensive invitation from the Creator for us to allow ourselves to promote ourselves to a better stage. Let's help to understand, in order to promote us, we also need to be cooperating to promote the good for all. Because otherwise, if I say I'm just promoting myself, I'm looking after myself, but I don't have time for the collective, that is still a very intellectual reference, which is coming from my selfish way of mind. The only way that we promote us, and we can see through the higher spirits, that we all know some of them, the one who more evolves is the one who more is capable to serving others. That is a natural process. As more as we expand our minds, we cannot see happiness in a selfish way. We cannot find happiness only looking about my personal interest. We feel happy as the good spirits feel happy and teach us in doing good for all. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter which religion the person is, doesn't matter their creed, doesn't matter their background. And then Danusa says, I was trying not to interrupt your chain of thought, but was reflecting on not wasting any more time. Yes, it's very good. Time comes from God. And it's more, again, we choose to resign ourselves towards Him. We can be very sure currently that we have a lot what we can do right now, where we are, with those who are around us. Man can soften or increase the bitterness of his trials according to the manner in which he faces earthly life. His sufferings will be all the more depending on how long he imagines it to be. But those who can see life through a spiritual perspective understand physical existence as a short experience. They see that life is a point in eternity, comprehend the shortness of its duration, and recognize that this painful moment will soon pass. That seems that is written for the current position on earth, isn't it? What do you think? It's just amazing when we read that. When it says they see life as a point in eternity. It's a tiny space, time. Comprehend the shortness of duration, comparing the eternity, the immortality. They see life as, and recognize that this painful moment will soon pass. This is why the gospel, according to Spiritism, is a reference of consolation and hope in our existences. Isn't it? What do we think here? The certainty of a happier future sustains and animates them, and far from complaining, they give thanks to God for the pain which will permit them to advance. On the other hand, For all of those who see only physical life before them, the duration seems interminable, and the pain oppresses with all its weight. Grazi is saying, to understand we are immortal beings. Gabriel is saying, the government will do their part, but the moment is for us to act as fast as we can and setting examples for others. We are all here on earth as instruments of Jesus, which we agreed in the spiritual world to occupy our space where God placed us, for us to help actively to do the good, so that we can influence others that see that we are following the right path. We are not here, and neither to waste our time, and also to perhaps incentivize others towards laziness. We are here to cooperate. And bear in mind that the benefactors needs us to be active, vividly, practicing goodness for all, that also others can move forward with us and we with the benefactors as brothers and sisters in humanity. Lenses focus. Cynthia said the point of view. Change our point of view from a perhaps materialistic to a spiritual way. We are all immortal. We are all growing. We are all blessed with the unique possibility to renew our own destinies through the love that comes from God, who is intensively and ostensibly inviting us, act, move, choose goodness, choose fraternity, choose solidarity, cooperate for the proposal of goodness of all. And Leandro says, it's so amazing on how the Spirit's book, written more than 150 or 60 years ago, it is still so current and reflect all the things that we think through, especially now in times of prudence, time of pandemic. It's true. We can see the love of God that sends the superior spirits through Jesus' message that came, Jesus' message through the enlightened spirits brought to earth around 150, 60 years ago, preparing ourselves. When we study the codification, when we study Spiritism, we can see they have been preparing humanity. And then we are now in this situation that we can benefit from those teachings and also spread them towards others in these moments of spreading consolation and hope on earth and beyond it. And in that way, we are coming to the end. And Laura is saying, accepting mind reality is the key of real happiness. Resignation is believing in the divine laws and then cooperating to implement them. Well said, Laura. Welcome to this study. And in that way, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our time today. May we all reflect about the motives of resignation according to the natural laws in the universe, according to the love of God, and resigning ourselves, improving ourselves, and cooperating and be more optimistic, be more constructive, be willing to constantly help one with another. We are all spirits who are back to cooperate with each other, promoting the goodness for all. May we always believe in our own capacity to transcend our own limitations when it comes in terms of loving, in terms of forgiving, in terms of being charitable, in terms of being more fraternal, more solidarious. And in that way, united with this thought, may we come to the end now and do also our final prayer with the words from Sandra, faith, courage, and resignation. May we unite our thoughts, may we unite our hearts, and together, sincerely, elevate ourselves towards Jesus Christ, our Master and our Guide, the Governor of planet Earth. And together, may we pray for all of those who are suffering, for all of those who are in despair on earth, emanating, irradiating from our hearts and minds, energies that soothe them, that calm, blessing all of them sincerely and asking Jesus, may the tenderness of your love and peace follow upon all children of God on earth. We know and we are learning that you are guiding us through this promotional phase, promoting a new epoch, a new era on earth. Help us all, sustain us all with your divine love, and bless all of those who are returning to the spiritual world as we understand that we are all immortal. And bless all of those and console of those who carry on earth. May we also constantly remind ourselves that we all go through the experiences that are promoting us, the experiences that are good for us today and good for us tomorrow. That the situation on earth, dear Lord, help us to understand, is a great mechanism of healing us individually and healing the planet. May our irradiations of love and peace fall upon all of those in need, so that we are all cooperating in changing the psychosphere, irradiating love, irradiating light, irradiating peace. And with your blessings in our homes, in our lives, in our existences, united under your name, united under your guidance, we end our meeting today. And we are grateful for this unique opportunity, expressing our gratitude towards everything and everyone which is connected right now with us. So be it. In that way, may we follow in peace, and with those who want to join us tomorrow, we will be again tomorrow with our reflections and studies around 8 o'clock tomorrow. Much peace to all, and see you soon. God bless us.